Good morning and welcome to day 77 of Geriatric 1944's Coronavirus Diaries. Today I want to talk about one of my lesser known activities, behind the scenes in the music industry. Way back when I got fed up with the music industry, essentially in the 70s when one of my big artists decided to leave the label to go to another label for much more money, which is frequently the motive of artists. Although they pretend to care about the music, they actually care about the cash. And I thought, you know what, this is not worth getting involved in, building up companies, spending a fortune to break an act, and then having them run off to somewhere else for more money after you've spent all your cash on them. And so I sort of gave up the industry, but a very good friend of mine, Dick Asher, was the head of CBS at the time, now Sony, in England. He and his wife Sheila were good friends of mine, and Dick said to me, look, we want your expertise. We'll give you a consultancy if you like. And I thought about it and thought, well, why not? And I started a consultancy with Dick, who then went to America and took over the whole of Sony worldwide. And one of the first things I did when they started there, they were doing a big clean out of all their stable. And they wanted to chuck out a lot of artists who were really not making much money, and some of whom also costing a fortune to re-sign. And I said to him, no, I'm terribly sorry. The one artist you cannot lose is Michael Jackson. And all the people around Dick said, well, why not? He's not selling many records and he's costing us a fortune to sign and he's very much of the past, and Jackson 5 and all that. I said, no, he is going to be huge. And Dick kept him on. And long after that, he said to me, if for nothing else, the money he was paying me as a consultant, which was about £250,000 a year, by the way, not a bad sum for about a month's, a day's work each month. But he said I'd earned it in that alone. Dick actually then got fired from Sony eventually. I stayed there for a while, reporting to Walter Yetnikoff, who's a completely different character, but equally good fun. And then Dick got the job as the head of Polygram over in America. So I went there with him. And once again, they were cleaning out their stables, and one of the things he wanted to do was get rid of all the dinosaur acts. He said, we've got all these expensive rock acts, and none of them are selling records anymore. They're all of the past. They're all of the 60s and 70s. I think by now this was the 80s. And I said, no, that's a terrible mistake. You only need one hit single from one act and all their back catalogue sells. You must keep hold of the artists with back catalogue. And all those rock acts did have back catalogue. So he agreed with that and turned down his A&R people's request. And one of the other ones they were going to throw out was a little band who were not doing very well. They'd had one smallish hit called something like Runaway. And they weren't going anywhere. And Dick said, we're going to dump them. And I said, no. Bon Jovi could be huge in the future. And Dick said, oh, well, are you sure? And I said, yes. And I suggested one song, which was a Mutt Lange song. He's a producer and writer. And he'd done a song called, I think, what was it called? One Foot Back in Your Door, by a group called Roman Holiday. And I said, that would be a huge smash. Let them record that last single. And Dick said rather grudgingly, OK, well, why not? And then thought about it and thought, you know what, actually, they're better off making an album rather than a single. So he said to me, who should they write with? And I said, well, the ideal person is a new young writer called Michael Bolton, who'd written a hit for Cher by then, and I thought was very talented. We approached him, but unfortunately he was going for a career of his own and didn't really want to write for somebody else at that point. I then suggested Diane Warren, who was a great writer, again, based on the West Coast, written some fabulous hits. She was too busy. And so my final suggestion was a man called Desmond Child, who hadn't had great success but was doing rather well. So we sent the group off to the West Coast, and they wrote with Desmond Child, and the result includes Living on a Prayer and You Give Love a Bad Name. Bon Jovi happened and were huge. John and I became actually quite good friends because when I did an interview with him for Entertainment USA, I discovered his very first job had been as a schoolboy, as a tape operator for his uncle's recording studios for an album by Little Steven and his Disciples of Soul. That was Steve Van Zandt, who was in the Bruce Springsteen outfit. And it was one of my favourite albums, and I was raving about all the tracks, and he was astonished that anybody had ever heard of it, and he also adored it. So we became good friends. He's a lovely, lovely guy, one of the nicest people you could ever hope to meet. I told him the story of how he would have been dropped if it hadn't been for me, and he was very grateful. I think that was when we were all in Moscow doing a Rock Against Drugs or some sort of big concert over there. I remember Ozzy Osbourne being highly amused by it all. John Bon Jovi's manager at the time, Doc McGee, was quite well known for, shall we say, supplying certain artists with certain substances if they needed them. Anyway, that's a part of my history as consultant. I had a great time as a consultant for many years for lots and lots of people. I'll tell you more of those stories in the future. But in the meantime, a bit of me in rock. And a track you might not have heard, which was called, when I was deciding to make some rock records, I'm Living in a Fucking Time Warp. See you tomorrow.